Hey guys, what's up? It's Finch here. We're back with another tier list. This time around it's going to be for SS overuse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down this whole big bad list. Might even have some honorable mentions at the end if I can't quite fit every Pokemon I want into it. And then I'm going to just describe, what they do in the metagame, why they're as good as they are and not quite as good as they are. And just give my overall thoughts. So sit back, grab some popcorn, and if you love this kind of stuff, then get ready for a mouthful because it's coming your way. Just gonna pause for 1 second and we'll get it going. Alright, guys, so tier 1, it kind of starts off in a fairly obvious fashion. Clefable. Needless to say, Clefable is the face of Sword and Shield overused. There's no real way to refute that. Even if you take away the Wish plus Teleport set, Combine sets are phenomenal. Stealth Rock and Utility sets have plenty of niche, and on top of that, there are plenty of trick sets that, well, for lack of a better phrase, bring plenty of trickery to the battle. Of course, the teleport set is truly what takes the cake, though. Wish, Moonblast, Teleport, and Protect, in particular, that set's just phenomenal. It's able to support the team in an unprecedented fashion. For example, let's say I'm facing a Kyurem, and turn one, I feel like I don't want to risk my Clefable getting frozen or taking like 50% from Ice Beam, so I go to Aegis Slash. Aegis Slash takes another 28% from that Ice Beam. So all of a sudden it's at 27%. Then I go for Shadow Ball, something that checks it, yada yada yada, and then a Kyurem comes in again. And again, I don't want to risk the Ice Beam. Again, this is just a rough example. So I take another 25%. All of a sudden, my Aegis Slash is at 50%. It's slow, it lacks recovery, and it probably could get killed or KO'd by everything on the opposing team. However, let's say the third time the Kyurem comes in, I go to Clefable. By then, the Kyurem's already likely crippled. I go to Clefable. Assuming he doesn't crit or freeze me, I can Wish up. I'm back up to, say, 65, 70% after he switches out and Wish happens. And he brings in his Seismitoad to set up Stealth Rocks, or his Rotom-Heat, whatever. And at that point, I can go for a Wish. I could live a couple attacks, and I could teleport right out to my Aegis Slash. And yeah, I'd take a little damage myself, which maybe is hard to cover off, but that Aegis Slash, despite not switching in at all, is being slow teleported in a Wish. The ability to do that is virtually unprecedented. There's no other Wish passer in Pokemon's history that has a very slow U-turn that has like, negative priority, essentially, if you will. I mean, yeah, people have used like Wish Jirachi that's very slow sometimes on teams and been able to do that, but there's still things that are slower than that they get to hit off second. The fact that Teleport has negative priority just works in such a phenomenal fashion for this set. It allows you to undo a lot of progress in the early game if you play proactively enough. And it does encourage passive gameplay, and it does negate progress. It does a lot of things that one could argue aren't competitive for the metagame. However, I think it actually redefines the competitive spirit of the generation in a sense. As in, it makes you more rewarded for being a patient player and picking your spots and being methodical, as opposed to making these aggressive, potentially high risk plays in the early game. It almost makes the tier into a game of glorified chess in some matchups. Of course, there are going to be some disproportionate values of your chess pieces on every given team in any given matchup, and in all honesty, Pokemon is far more complex than a game of chess, of course, but at the same time, there's an argument that the way you use Clefable to heal up all of your little Pokemon on your team can just go such a long way. And the way you scheme that out is going to reward you just from not risking anything you need. Because if Pokemon's dead, you can't heal it up. But if you have your Hydreigon at 28% after taking a couple discharges from Rotom-Heat, and the next time Rotom-Heat comes in, you go, your full health Clefable, you Wish, and you pass it off, all of a sudden, you're back at 70%, ready to nuke that with a Draco Meteor. And I mean, let's just go down a list of Pokemon and see what Pokemon you can reliably support from Clefable that lack recovery otherwise. So, Rotom Heat's a big one, and that's in tier 2. The fact of the matter is that Toxic Rotom Heat is just a bit more consistent in making progress than the Nasty Plot, than the Pain Split variant. Pain Split, of course, is a very good set, but Toxic with Nasty Plot, Discharge, and Overheat is allowing you to cripple things like Seismitoad, Hippowdon, Opposing Rotom Heat, Dragapult, Hydreigon, etc., you name it. That set, however, lacks recovery, so you're taking a couple Moonblasts from Clef, or Brave Bird / Body Press from Corviknight, or even a Scald from Toxapex. All of a sudden, you're going to be at least close to half health, or even below half health if it's repeated. Then, the only way to heal up is taking a Wish after the Teleport from Clefable. Let's go through other Pokemon that I rank in Tier 3 and 4 and just see how they appreciate it. Yeah, Corviknight can heal itself up, Toxapex can heal itself up, Excadrill. Let's say they set up Rockets or Seismitoad turn 1. Happens a lot of the time. But they let their Seismitoad get tripled. That's great for you. However, Rockstar, all of a sudden they have their Clefable and trying to heal up the Seismitoad, you can get a free spin-off. But in that sequence, you might have taken, say, a Moonblast, or even a Flamethrower if the Clefable hasn't actually Wish plus Wish plus Teleport needs 2 attacks, or so on and so forth. Maybe even a knockoff. All of a sudden, your Excadrill is taking a lot of damage, and it's not healing up a ton. Passing Wish to that, you go huge, not only in the potential hazard removal game, but also in the sweeping game. So that's something worth noting. Zeraora is another big one. I mean, pretty much any offensive Pokemon, Dragapult, Hydreigon, Aegislash, Conkeldurr especially. Conkeldurr is one of the best Wish partners. And last but not least, Pokemon like Dracovish and Conkeldurr, which aren't the most durable Pokemon, but still have okay-ish natural bulk. I say ish because they're definitely not something I'd refer to as bulky, but they're able to tank one hit that's not like super effective in all likelihood. These Pokemon are able to do so much damage when they get in. Getting them in safely is oftentimes only possible due to teleport, unless you're making a double switch, which again incurs a certain level of risk, which I completely understand why the average player would shy away from. So, all things considered, the fact of the matter is that Clefable is a catalyst for so much proactive play that while it essentially limits you to more passive beginnings, it can ultimately lead to progress more so than any other Pokemon in the tier. And that's why it makes the Wish Teleport set such an amazing piece of glue on balancing, a supportive masterpiece. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just thinking here. Besides the Wish Teleport set, which I can go on and I can make a whole video. In fact, I have made a whole video about it. Check that out. But besides that, there's also Calm Mind variants. Calm Mind Life Orb in particular is quite good. Personally, I like running 190 speed with Flamethrower or Thunderbolt, Moonblast, Calm Mind, Soft Boiled, and then throwing the rest into physical defense, which is different than the Teleport set, which tends to run special defensive. This allows for a lot of things, but in particular, it allows you to Revenge Heal Conkeldurr. Yeah, and as I said, it also has moves like Knockoff, Thunder Wave, Toxic, Encore, even Healing Wish. So, sorry, I just need a little drink of water there. All things considered, Clefable is just one of the best Pokemon in metagame, regardless of the Wish Teleport set. But the Wish Teleport set, far and away the best, most common set in the metagame, just makes it so good. And it's not going to go away anytime soon. DLC might bring some things that can take advantage of it more, although one could argue that there already are a few things. Excadrill, Jirachi, Aegislash, Gengar. Yeah, there are things that take advantage of it, as I say, but admittedly they're a bit limited right now. There we go. That's much better. So given that, I just think Clefable there's very little reason not to use it on your balance, and even bulky offensive teams right now. Because of that, it deserves to be in a tier of its own. However, there are various other Pokemon which I would personally call like S minus Pokemon, like a little above like the A plus rank, like very, very good Pokemon. And those Pokemon would be the next 2 Pokemon on my list, which would be Corviknight and Rotom-Heat. Corviknight's a great Pokemon in the tier. While a lot of people are actually kind of underwhelmed by it as of late, I think that it still possesses a lot of qualities that make it second to none in terms of the utility it could bring when it comes to hazard removal and physical tanking. The big thing about Corviknight is that it keeps Excadrill in check. It's the best Excadrill counter in the game by a long shot. While things like Hippowdon can check it pretty well, and in addition to that, you have things like Seismitoad, Kommo-o, Foul Play Mandibuzz. I mean, you could go down the list and see a couple other things as well. Gyarados, I guess. Milotic, I guess. There are things that can soft check it. Quagsire, like all those. The only true counters are Hippowdon and Corviknight. And Corviknight does the best job of them all. While it is indeed forced to run body press, and it's going to want to run body press a lot of the time regardless, just because of how strong it is with defense investment, and the fact that it also helps you against Bisharp and a couple other steel types. Corviknight has the ability pressure, which allows it to not only stall things out like, say, Iron Heads in the long game, so that enables you to play completely differently after you stall them out more aggressively. Because, yeah, some games are going well over 100 turns, but on top of that, it also is really great against Stealth Rockers as, say, it's turn 4, and they go to their Ferrothorn, and they click Stealth Rocker Spike. All of a sudden, that's 2 PP wasted. On top of that, they're probably going to Leech Seed you. They can only get 8 Leech Seeds off even if they hit all of them into your Corviknight. And you also Clefable and all that to be immune to that Leech Seed. It makes whittling them down, stalling them out, negating that progress so beneficial. And in a metagame like SS Overused, that yes, again, is a bit more passively oriented, something like Corviknight's great. And on top of that, it's not just a utility Pokemon. It's not just something that can control the field. It also has the ability to check a number of things. For example, the physical defensive variants, which are far more common than anything else right now, can soft check Conkeldurr, especially with Brave Bird. And on top of that, counter Excadrill, as we said. It could counter Bisharp, barring critical hits or a lot of damage take before. It could be a soft check to Terrakion. It can tank a hit from Cloyster +2. This goes on. It isn't to a kid by choice, but Amazon is pretty much the only thing in the metagame that can claim that, and so on and so forth. Corviknight is just a phenomenal utility piece right now, and maybe I rank it a little higher than the average player because it does fit onto a lot of my balances, but Overall, it's still clearly one of the top 3 to 5 Pokemon in the metagame. I personally put it at number 2, but it has to be at least top 5, no matter what your list is, no matter what styles you play. If you're not putting Corviknight in your top 5, then you just don't have an honest perspective of the metagame in my eyes. Yeah. So moving on. As you see, the next Pokemon we have is Rotom-Heat, and this might be a bit of an oddball to the more casual player, someone who hasn't actually played this generation, but has been more of a frequent in, say, past generations. For example, some people played a lot of Generation 6 and 7, come to Generation 8 and like, whoa, why is Rotom-Heat taking over? So let's let's explain that. Not only does it resist fairy types, which makes it deal with Clefable set in a sense, but also the fact of the matter is that it's gained two very crucial tools. It's gained heavy duty boots, which negate the stealth rock vulnerability. Yes, it does make it knockoff shy, but that's okay. And it's gained nasty plot, which lets it break through things like Clefable, or specially defensive Corviknight, or Toxapex, or Hippowdon. Even forces damage onto things like Seismitoad that could otherwise potentially counter it, or even fire up discharge in the Hydreigon or Dragapult. Once they paralyze them in the early to mid game, all of a sudden it's a nasty sweeper that cannot be revenge killed due to them being paralyzed. The fact of the matter is that Nasty Plot, Discharge, Overheat, and Toxic or Painful Rotom Heat is one of the most annoying Pokemon to deal with, even if you have something like Seismitoad plus Clefable, or Seismitoad plus Revenge Killer, and so on and so forth. And Rotom Heat's just a phenomenal Pokemon in presence within the confines of the metagame because of that. Yes, there's counterplay. Yes, there are abilities to shut it down. Yes, a proactive switch or two can go a long way in negating the progress it makes in the early game. However, that does not make it any less effective. And the fact of the matter is that Rotom Heat is one of the most convenient, one of the most interesting Pokemon in the metagame right now. And I don't think we've really seen anything like it in terms of overall niche and how it can be such a catalyst of specific sequences that are going to be favorable and make progress in the long haul, paralyzing things or toxicing things, and setting up a nasty plot and forcing a specific pattern of switches that you could take advantage of accordingly. Sometimes it's not even doing all the work itself, so much as it's letting other things do the work once it gets those little cripplings or those little patterns provoked. The fact of the matter is that in a more balance-oriented player, sequential plays and provoking specific switches and patterns can go a long way. You can take advantage of that. You can feel it out. And having a sense for that as a player is something that's really understated in the SSCU metagame. And I feel like the best players have that certain grasp on long-term play, understanding where the opponent's at and what they're thinking about. In a way, Pokemon is a psychological game, and I think that a lot of people just don't really have a full grasp on that. I think that's something that really should deserve more forethought, in all honesty. So I think that as a player in SSCU, if I was one of the newer players, then I would definitely try and key on that. Um, yeah. So what else? Hmm. I guess there's also a point in time when the Trick Scarf set was pretty good. Um, Volt Switch Defog sets are always viable as well. But yeah, personally, in my eyes, it's just a nasty plot set that really is that good. Hmm. Okay, let's go on to the tier 3. Tier 3 consists of a bit of a versatile group of Pokemon. All of them that I would define as clearly A plus, like high to mid to high A plus in viability ranking terms. I have Toxapex, Excadrill, Zeraora, Dragapult, Hydreigon in that order. And I think the order here is still pretty clear cut for me. But once we get beyond this order to tier 4, then it gets a bit more close together, a bit more mushed. All these Pokemon are pretty close. But yeah, so let's keep going. Toxapex is obviously a great Pokemon. Regenerator. It has a great defensive typing. It absorbs Toxic Spikes while setting Toxic Spikes. Knock, Scald. I mean, you could even go for Block and Stall forever. Haze for Commanders and Swords Dancers and whatnot. I mean, you name it. I mean, Toxapex is the epitome of a strong Pokemon added to balance as a defensive pivot. It actually is kind of kept in check by Clefable in a sense that it absorbs status and then gives you a slow pivot out. In fact, Teleport Clefable actually is one of the reasons why Toxapex isn't tier 2 right now in my eyes. But it's still a great Pokemon. For example, it can keep in check things like Bulk Up Corviknight, soft check to any physical Aegis Slash, again, crits. And in a way, I guess it could kind of pivot into a fighting move from Conkeldurr and kind of switch a pivoting sequence. Admittedly, it does have some new foes like Zeraora, Nasty Plot Dragon, and Extra that can dodge a burn. But it still does really great in metagame right now. One of the main stops of Combine Flamethrower Clefable, Bulk Up Corviknight, as I said. Also, the premier Dracovish check that's not named Seismitoad, and really just durable enough to do a lot of things. It does well against Defoggers, so it can set up Toxic Spikes, which does very well against hyper offensive teams. It's a check to Cloyster. Um, it's kind of one of the few like sort of semi measures against Primarina. In fact, people have started running Poison Jab specifically for that, which is cool. One of the things that keeps Keldeo like in the B ranks, and I don't even think I have Keldeo listed for a long time. This is fucking, I don't know, Jesus, it's not in the first 8 tiers of Pokemon. That's how low I am on Keldeo. And that's mainly because of things like Toxapex. Yeah, it's also a great answer to Cinderace, and one of the reasons why Cinderace isn't too great right now. Because Pyro Ball, low key, is pretty threatening. I know a lot of people sleep on it. Pyro Ball plus Court Change is actually pretty cool, though. Gotta say. But if you face Toxapex, it's like, oh, well, I'm fucked. Anyway, moving beyond that, some other Pokemon that are worth using a lot of the time and very good Pokemon. You could even say top tier Pokemon are Excadrill, Zero, or Dragapult, Hydreigon. Excadrill's the next one, and honestly, without Corviknight in the tier, Excadrill would probably be banned right now. That's how strong I am on it. Rapid Spin, giving it +1 speed and a little more power is really good for it, but also just Swords Dance sets with Mold Breaker are very threatening to non-Corviknight teams. And on top of that, I mean, you can argue, and it's just an argument, that Sandrush Drill is one of the best sweepers in the tier. I think that it combined with, say, Nasty Plot Hydreigon, which is probably better than it, and Bulk Up Zero Aura, which is probably a little better than it. I like the three most common slash potent sweepers. If you combine like commonality and like potency, if you will. That's not a word. You know what I mean, though. Oh my god, I need to get my water. One sec. Oh, geez, sorry, just a dry throat today. And it's like making talking through these videos kind of hard, but yeah, Sword Stance Drill offers a ton. And of course, you can run Stealth Rock sets. And I've even seen Toxic being run, which helps cripple things like Rotom-Heat, um, Seismitoad, Hippowdon, even Como-O. So yeah, that's really cool as well. Moving beyond this, Zero Aura is a Pokemon that is now very good this generation, but after DLC, once things like, say, Gliscor or Zygarde or Garchomp come around, it's going to be very different. It doesn't have access to Hidden Power Ice anymore, so yeah, Landorus, he could also all. But right now, I mean, there are no true hard counters to it. Grass Knot can get Hippowdon and Seismitoad. Play Rough can get Como-O. Close Combat gets Ferrothorn, Hydreigon, Excadrill. Knockoff gets things like Aegislash. And Plasma Fist is just really good against Restomig. And the fact that it matters, its speed tier coupled with its coverage makes it so good. However, it lacks the ability to grab one-hit KOs. Even against things like Specially Defensive Corviknight, it can't kill with Plasma Fist. It does have enough power, however, to 2-kill Specially Defensive Clefable user, which is cool. But yeah, oh, excuse me. Sorry, I come down with a little cold, which is not great. I'm not gonna lie, not happy about that development. But yeah, all things considered, Zero Aura is a phenomenal Pokemon, and I definitely would recommend trying it out. It has some inbuilt versatility. You've seen a lot of bulk up sets for attack set. You can even see Calm Mind as a viable option. Although personally, I'm kind of low on Calm Mind right now. It's just so weak, so weak. But yeah, Zero Aura is a great Pokemon. Ton of versatility, very fast, keeps things like Togekiss and Corviknight in check as well. You go a long way. Next up, we have Dragapult. Dragapult is another Pokemon that's new to OU, except this time around, it is completely new. Zero was around last generation. It just didn't really have much users know you. I think it fell to UU last generation, um, if I'm not mistaken. It was just never really that good. Um, but now it's all of a sudden it's like one of the fast dominant threats in the metagame. And there's a lot of things that like can soft shake it. Like for example, Rotom-Heat can tank two close combats and really fuck with it. Or Conkeldurr can live in one hit and just dominate it. Or even Hippowdon can kill with one Earthquake and live a Grass Knot. Ferrothorn can live two close combats and body press it for a ton of damage. Seismitoad at full health lives a Grass Knot. Dracovish can live a Plasma Fist and kill it back. Germ can live a close combat and live it back. Even Track can live a close combat if it's not Life Orb and kill it back. But with a lot of chip, which is very easy to get in this kind of methodical, drawn out metagame, and timely pivoting, which is possible with things like teleport and slow U-turns and whatnot, or just coming in on something like a predicted recovery move or electric move or something like that, setup move, is just very possible for Zero Aura, and then it could wreak havoc for sure. So opposing teams have to be very safe against that. Moving beyond that, Dragapult. Um, also, yeah, I actually keep between Dragon Ball and Zero Aura on my list. But anyway, before I go on and on and on and on and on about Zero Aura, because I feel like I was already about to go to Dragon Ball. So let's get to Dragon Ball now. But another new Pokemon is Dragon Ball. I feel like I lost my stream of conscious, like in the middle of Zero Aura when I was going to Dragon Ball, and then I went right back to it. I'm sorry, guys. This is sloppier than my other ones. I just kind of out of it today. But anyway, let's just say we're Dragapult now. Oh my goodness. Well, Dragapult's kept in check by things like Clefable and more fringe options like not Mandoas. Mandoas is great too, but like Incineroar and Snorlax. It's actually a really great Pokemon in this metagame right now. The Hex sets are still always forcing specific switches, and they're also really great at being quick. So they can even outrun things like Scarf, Dracovish, but also just having speed control that's not like a dedicated Scarf is really cool right now. But on top of that, it's naturally very threatening. There are also physical sets like Dragon Dance sets, which admittedly I lack much experience with, so I'm not going to comment, but they're pretty strong. And then also Specs Hex, which you pair it with like Toxic Spikes, and Status Spread is just uncounterable right now. So yeah, all things considered, Dragapult is a tad on the frail side, but it's one of the most versatile offensive threatening Pokemon with physical and special sets. Special sets being far more common, but still they do the trick. And if you run into a physical set and you're not expecting it, that can go a long way too. Although they're mainly seen in the realm of hyper offensive teams, so some perhaps to keep in mind as a player. Yeah. Gotta pause 1 second. Hi guys, sorry about that. But anyway, after Dragapult, there's Hydreigon. Hydreigon's a really good Pokemon in the metagame, of course. The Nasty Plot plus 3 attack set in particular is arguably the hardest Pokemon to check in the entire metagame offensively. There's no real counter to it. I mean, you could argue Primarina, but even then, not really. There's revenge killing possibilities like Conkeldurr's Mach Punch, opposing Scarf Hydreigon, Zero Auras, plus Combative Play Rough, Dragapult, sure. But if you need anything to pretty much guarantee getting at least one kill in any given matchup, it's going to be Life Orb Dragon. And in particular, lately, it's shifted to using Modest more and more. While you do lose out on outrunning Excadrill and Rotom-Heat, the speed tier, other than that, isn't too congested. And a lot of teams have Corviknight for Excadrill anyway. Plus, they're not going to go Excadrill until they notice that it's Modest based off the damage on Clef. So it's like kind of whatever. And as for Rotom-Heat, not being able to soft check that isn't as great. But if you've got something like Seismitoad, Rhyperior, Como, or Dragapult, then you should be fine regardless. And even then, you're not dying to plus 2 orbit. You're just taking like 45-50. So yeah, no big deal. And plus 2 Flash Cannon from Modest Hydreigon has like a 75-80% chance to kill, even specially defensive Clefable, which is really important. Swinging that roll in your favor. A lot of times you lure it in, they think they're going to live, and then you kill it, and that's just like huge. It just dictates the whole game. Of course, if you have something to knock or cripple the Clefable, that could go a long way as well. There's also the Choice Scarf variant, which is viable still. It's a bit underwhelming. Truth be told, the main reason why I rank Hydreigon this highly is just because the Nasty Plot set is borderline uncounterable right now, and I just value that very highly. So yeah, I put Hydreigon within the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Pokemon metagame. And after that, I feel like there's a bit of a drop off, and then you've got like the Pokemon like semi staples in their archetypes, but like aren't quite as potent in what they bring to the table. They're more reactionary measures, or they're very good offensively, but they aren't like quite top tier in my eyes. Examples of the reactionary measures are things like Seismitoad and Hippowdon. Both these Pokemon are great Stealth Rock setters and bring a lot of defensive utility to the table, of course, but they mainly are only used because certain other things are very good. And yeah, that kind of does dictate viability and why things are used, if you will. But I feel as if they don't have the same sticking power to things like Hydreigon, which has been timeless throughout the entire span of the metagame, or things like Zero Aura, which ever since the home drop, has been one of the best Pokemon. Or, of course, things like Clefable, Corviknight, and Rotom-Heat, which need no introduction whatsoever, especially given what I said prior to this. But yeah, Seismitoad specifically is obviously one of the best Pokemon, but once Dracovish goes, I think it's going to drop a bit in viability. Even without Dracovish, though, as is the premier check and counter to it, there's also Rotom-Heat that it does really well against, non-grass, not Zero Aura, does really well against. You can just set up rocks in general, soft check things like Excadrill, Hippowdon, um, even live a hit from things like Trican if need be. So yeah, Seismitoad isn't an awful Pokemon by any means, but it really is just kind of a subject of the context of the metagame, if you will. So there's definitely gonna be a day when Seismitoad like drops to UU in like a year from now, and I'm just kind of waiting for that to happen, honestly. Um, but that's not to take away from its viability right now. It's still top 10 mon in my eyes, although on the fringe. But yeah, it's still very good. Powdon next up is another premier Stealth Rock setter. If you look above this, the only really Stealth Rock setter that's seen above this are Clefable, which never uses Stealth Rock really right now, and Excadrill, which doesn't use Stealth Rock a ton right now, especially when compared with the Hippowdon Sand teams. So Hippowdon is arguably the second or third most common Stealth Rock setter right now, and Sand teams are just great. They're super consistent. They can cover hyper offense with potential Toxic Spikes and Toxic Spikes, and things like Excadrill to Revenge Kill. On top of that, it's able to really wall things like Zero Aura, Lack and Grass Knot, check Conkeldurr, especially non-close combat variants, as more and more people are running Drain Punch lately for some reason. Any physical Aegis Slash, especially if it lacks Balloon. Excadrill, of course, Drakion, Como, you name it. Hippowdon is just really good in those matchups. So yeah, moving beyond that, Aegis Slash is back this generation in OU, and somehow it's not like super ridiculously overpowered for once. It has taken a bit of a hit in terms of effectiveness, just fundamentally speaking, but still, despite that, it's a very good Pokemon. It uses more direct offensive set. You don't see King Shield a ton. Of course, Subtoxic is viable, but Specs is the most common set, followed up by Swords Dance Balloon. In Choice Band and other niche sets see some usage as well, I suppose. Um, yeah, but overall, Aegislash is just a really nice, kind of built-in, versatile offensive Pokemon that I think more people need to try out. Honestly, I feel like it doesn't see enough usage, which is almost kind of weird considering just how good it is and how everyone recognizes it as really good. But I digress from there. There are still things like Incineroar, more might be likely to see Mandibuzz, Hydreigon, or even Komodo that can keep it in check pretty nicely. Of course, with that said, it's still one of the best Pokemon in the tier, and I have it right outside my top 10, and you can make an argument for it to be number 9 or 10 in my eyes as well. Especially once Drakefish goes, I feel like then more teams are going to be looking for more of a like direct instant gratification breaker, which Aegislash is one of. And on top of that, there's also going to be less Seismitoad, and arguably even a little less Toxfist, so I think Toxfist will play on to its role in the top tiers of the metagame. But yeah, Aegislash is just a great Pokemon. It's probably going to be timeless. It's probably going to stay OU throughout the entire generation and among the top half of OU in terms of usage and viability as well. Conkeldurr is something that just really benefits from this face of the metagame. The Flame Orb set is great. Facade does so much damage to everything. It finally kind of broke out of this like fringe like UU Pokemon over the last couple generations. The Staraptor effect almost, although it wasn't BL ever Gen, it was actually UU in Gen 6. But yeah, now Conkeldurr is kind of finally shining and showing its true colors as a really great Pokemon within the context of the metagame. Um, the Facade, Flame Orb, Knockoff, Mach Punch, neither Close Combat or Drain Punch tend what I tend to use on it, and it honestly has no real hard counters. Of course, there's things I could soft check it, there are things I could revenge kill it, but yeah, it's really great if you want something that's going to guarantee making progress. On top of that, you can also, of course, run Bulk Up, Earthquake, yeah, you name it. Definitely viable on that. And it doesn't even the most frail Pokemon, although you don't love taking specialists with it anymore, of course. But yeah, all in all, Conkeldurr is just a great Pokemon right now, and I rank it just above Ferrothorn, the next Pokemon, and the I think the fourth steel I have in viability. You have Corviknight, Excadrill, Aegislash, and Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn's another check to Dracovish, but more importantly, it's a steel type. It's one of the best spikers in the metagame. It also has Body Press, which is really great. It helps to check things like Bisharp, Excadrill, even Zeraora, and just do more damage, especially things like Corviknight. If you get like Leech on it, then you get Body Press and you can out damage it on the Roost, which is really cool. Let you keep your Stealth Rock or Spikes. It also has utility options like Toxic and Thunder Wave, and of course Knockoff. That's the usage. And also Power Up is finally seeing more usage on it to help triple things like Seismitoad, do more damage to Powdon, Dracovish, etc. Not extra because body press is that. But yeah, overall, it's very kind of built-in versatile and the moves it could use. But overall, it is pretty self-explanatory. Just a nice defensive hazard setter with a ton of defensive utility. Attention on physical defense right now. I think we might see more special defensive once Drakefish goes though. And speak of the double, the Pokemon that we probably mentioned more than any other Pokemon that we haven't listed quite yet is Dracovish. I've at the bottom of tier 4. It's ranked currently A ranked in the viability rank. It's the first A ranked Pokemon we're actually covering, but personally, in my eyes, it's low A plus. Choice Band Dracovish is virtually encountered and it's very likely to get banned. It's just too good. That's really how I put it. There's very little counterplay. It forces very specific team building conventions, and nothing else is quite like that, barring maybe Hydreigon, which is a bit more complicated of a case, and it doesn't have one new move that does require a turn to set up. So yeah, the cost of that is a bit different, and the ability to counteract that is a bit different, one could say. Because of that, I find Dracovish, seeing its Fuchsia's Rend is just so spammable unless you have a Seismitoad. Just to be too much for the metagame. And I did a video on that, and I made a bunch of posts in the suspect thread. So check those out if you're not sure. If you want to see me suspect laddering, all that's also on my channel as well. So definitely a lot of accessible points in my opinion on that. So I'm not going to beat the bush on Dracovish here. Scarf is also really good. It kind of invalidates hyper offense in the same way that physically defensive Melmetal did, except through different means. One of them wasn't killable, the other one was killable, but you can't kill it because you're getting outrun and killed with all your Pokemon. You just kind of like fire something every time it comes in. So yeah, all things considered, Scarf Dracovish is phenomenal. Choice Band Dracovish is a top tier breaker. And while it does have some opportunity cost in using it, it doesn't provide much defensively. It's weak to Toxic Spikes. Seismitoad kind of makes it a kind of lame, although still equal with a Choice Band Crunch here and there, and you're weakening it. I don't put it much above like number 12, 15, but in that range. But all things considered, it's still in tier 4 in my eyes. Moving beyond this, Mandibuzz, Pokemon that I've actually been really high on. I probably would have put it in tier 3 at one point in its peak during SPL time. And even now, I still could have it in tier 4, honestly. But I think a lot of other people are a lot lower in it. Personally, I don't get that because it's such a great answer to Dragapult and Aegislash. But just seeing as its usage isn't super reflected compared to my usage, I guess I'd put it at the top tier 5. Mana Buzz, of course, can run faster sets with Foul Play to help check things like Bisharp, and Foul Play also lets it do well against Swords Dance Extras. It lives +2 it all the time, and other things like Aegis Slash for Swords Dance, you can just kill before it gets attacking you, switching to Swords Dance as more to Dracovish, Cloyster, I guess. Yeah, you name it. Foul Play is just pretty solid in general. Also, actually gives you a kind of makeshift check the Snorlax, Tukio, Mammoth and switch in, etc. So yeah, not to mention Cinderace. So Foul Play is really good. Knockout's really good. Brave Bird for Conkeldurr is good. So actually, has a versatile assortment of offensive options to pair with Defog and Roost, which you on every set. Even U-Turn I could run. And Toxic Clefable for things like Rotom-Heat, Incineroar, Togekiss and switch in, Primarina and switch in, Zero Aura and switch in if you don't have Foul Play, Hydreigon, etc. So yeah, and of course, it's a great defogger. It does well against the ground type stealth rockers, and they like toxic. And it actually doesn't do too well against Ferrothorn or Clefable, which is worth noting. But yeah, it's mainly there to check Dragon Ball Major Slash, which it does better than anything in the tier, arguably, unless it's a Dragon Dance variant of Dragon Ball you take in Chip or Specs Thunder. As for Aegis Slash is Specs that can land a Toxic on it and then do a lot of damage, but it can't stand and you can just roost it off. So that's going to be at least good in the short term. Beyond that, I also have Komo-O, Kyurem, Gengar, Trackdown, and Bisharp listed in Tier 5. Komo-O is a great Pokemon, gives a lot of utility. The ability to absorb Shadow Balls is great with you. But, of course, also Rocky Helmet on the more physically defensive variant for boost up body press and help check Dracovish is great. Also a soft check to Aegis Slash, Conkeldurr, um, Terrakion in a sense. Bisharp is a great answer too. Snorlax as well, yeah. It's a good stealth rocker. And then also, one of the more underrated system metagames, Swords Dance 3 attacks or Dragon Dance 3 attacks is really good. Iron Head or Poison Jab can just invalidate Clefable completely. Close combat shreds everything, and Earthquake is really good for hitting Aegis Slash. I guess also it hits like a couple other things as well if you don't want a close combat lock, or it does more damage to things like Jirachi, and of course, Discharge Chandelure as well. So yeah, Como is actually pretty versatile, but also just really good with the physical defensive stealth rock set, landing it squarely in the middle of tier 5. I rank it as an A Pokemon, but personally I think it's listed A plus right now. But yeah, I think I'd vote for A right now. It's just high A. Beyond that, we kind of get into the fringe breaker trio right now: Kyurem, Gengar, and Tracheon. I think all three of these Pokemon have like a ton of offensive convenience right now. Kyurem being the best of the three. It was even fringe broken at one point during SPL. I really relied on like running Clefable plus Rotom-Heat or Aegis Slash for it in a sense. And of course, you're always risking freezes and crits. But all things considered, I think it's kind of slowed down a little bit just because there are other things that metagame's focusing on. But I think there will be better days for Kyurem ahead. Right now, I rank it here, and it's probably the lowest I've ever ranked it. But now that it is freeze dry, it's just really good. Kyurem in general is a great pick in the metagame right now. The spec set being very threatening, of course. I wouldn't bother with any other set, just specs. But yeah, it's great. Gengar, it actually was really good at the start of the metagame, then took a big hit. But now the sub hex sets are good. And finally, people are starting to use Nasty Plot plus Life Orb with 3 attacks. Shadow Ball, Sludge Wave, and either Thunderbolt or Focus Blast. I prefer Thunderbolt, Nuke Talk Specs, Mandibuzz at +2. However, Focus Blast is good if you're anticipating a rare Tyranitar or Incineroar, or you want to get a one-hit KO on things like Hydreigon or Excadrill. So yeah, I'm very threatening, and of course the Wisp Pack substitute Sludge Bomb set is also just a nuisance. There's nothing that truly counters it, and while it does take a little bit to get in, if you pair it with Teleport and some nice hazards, it's just a pain in the ass. Those kind of dedicated teams around it, we saw a lot in OST during later stages, and they're just really good in general. And Tracheon, the third head of the kind of like reckless breaker trio that I rank in the square and middle like higher part of A rank, but also like in tier 5 of the viability for my personal rankings. Is just really good. It's hard to keep in check. Swords Dance is great. I particularly like Life Orb with 3 attacks, but you could also run sub on it. Choice Band is viable too. It just decimates anything. The only real counter to it is to pound on. Of course, there are ways to revenge kill it like Dragapult, Zero Aura, Scarf Dracovish, Mach Punch from Conkeldurr. And of course, you got to be predicting the line is if you close combat or stun the Aegis Slash, then it's not going to do you much good. Is it probably be able to live an Earthquake after that and kill you back? But of course, it's only a short term checking thing. So really, the only hard answer to it is physically defensive. You pound on, and if you're running Choice Banded or Life Orb, then after like any chip, it can potentially get 2 killed by 2 close combats as well, or a +2 close combat. So that's worth noting. Tracheon is a really threatening Pokemon, but it is not the most convenient Pokemon if it doesn't do a ton defensively. And while it does have a nice speed tier, I wouldn't qualify it as a revenge killer, as it's still well slower than other strong Pokemon like Dragapult, Zero Aura, Gengar, yeah, Speed Types Keldeo, slower than Cinderace, slower than Salazzle. The Salazzle can't do much to it, etc. And the last Pokemon I put in tier 5, and I think this is a bit of an outlier, a lot of people put it more in tier 6 or 7, is Bisharp. I'm really high in Bisharp right now. I think it's a staple on any type of hyper offense. And hyper offense, the scenery kind of blends, you could see webs, you could see lead spikes, you could see lead rocks, you could see Excadrill, even a Selgor, Mew, Grimmsnarl with screens, Shuckle with webs plus rocks. Yeah, but all those teams in my eyes should have Bisharp. It abuses defog so well, and sometimes it doesn't even need to like sweep. It could just like, for example, do 90% to a Corviknight with a +2 knockoff, which either means that you're making it so that it can't defog, or you're coming into the defog and then you get set up hazards again later, and then all of a sudden with that Corviknight commission, your Swords Dance, Como, or Dragon Dance Dragapult, or something like Cloyster could just completely sweep them. So yeah, all things considered, it's just such a great catalyst in those teams, and even on balanced teams, it's all right. I think it's a bit less good there, but yeah, I personally rank it in the same tier with Kyurem. I know that one could say that Kyurem is miles better. I think that Kyurem's A, whereas Bisharp is just like at the peak of A minus right now. Um, but like I think this year kind of encompasses both. I think A rank is just kind of like something that I'd only qualify with like 5 or 6 Pokemon right now, and A minus and A plus are just kind of like bigger groups, even closer to like 10 Pokemon. So yeah, I think this tier kind of it's the best of both worlds though. But all things considered, I put Bisharp in tier 5. I'd completely understand if someone put it in tier 6. And speaking of tier 6, like get right onto it here as this video is taking forever. Here I have Jirachi, Primarina, Grimmsnarl, Cloyster, and Togekiss. Jirachi, something I feel is underrated. It's one of the best Clef abusers in the tier, simply the Wish set, because what's cool is you switch to it, and then all of a sudden it can't teleport, so you got to hard switch out, and if something's weakened, then you're great. ABR used a really cool set that Casper came up with, the Expert Build set. However, I think that Wish sets are kind of viable, but also Trick Scarf is great. Trick Scarf, even with Wish over Healing Wish, is really cool. And then there's like subsets, even Calm Mind, although I don't love Calm Mind sets. So yeah, all things considered, Jirachi is an underrated Pokemon, underexplored Pokemon, and I think that it's like squarely in the middle of A minus right now. I've yet to use it a ton myself, but I'm looking forward to seeing how it adapts with the metagame. And I think that in this tier without Pursuit, it actually has a ton of viability right now and a ton of versatility right now. So I'm really curious to see that Expert set was just kind of the tip of the iceberg in my eyes. So we're going to see a lot more of it. Pretty Marina's the next Pokemon, and honestly, I made this list about a week and a half ago, or maybe a week ago. And I've just kind of been designing it since then, as long as I'm doing my other videos. And I think Free Marina probably I'd honestly put it above Jirachi. Now that I think about it more and more, maybe even tied with Bisharp in the end of tier 5. Subcombine Free Marina is virtually encountered right now. People are actually running Power Up Marathon more and more just for it, and Poison Jet packs more and more for it. But in all honesty, it's just so good against balance teams. You get a sub, you get a Calm Mind if it just sweeps them. Yes, there is a bit of opportunity cost that comes with it. Yes, in a way, it's a little bit cheesy, but it's so good. Pretty Marina is super duper underrated right now, and I'd advise trying it out personally. It just gels really well in the constant metagame, and it's able to get in repeatedly and set up subs and then Calm Mind up. It's just one of the best win conditions right now. Super underrated, and I think it's squarely in the middle of A minus range right now. So yeah, definitely a great option. I'd advise trying out. Grimmsnarl, pretty much there for screens. There's no other way to use it in my eyes. People have used like bulk up with pranks to sleep talk. I think that's really stupid. Screens are actually pretty good right now. Hyper offense is right now in general is like kind of a nice change from the status quo. And in my eyes, if you want to do that, screens is the most consistent way to do it. And that's also why I have the next Pokemon there, Cloyster, which is really good on hyper offense. And of course, a Demon with flinches. I don't think it's good on any other team than hyper offensive teams, but on hyper offense, Cloyster is also one of the main breakers alongside other Pokemon that you see ranked above this, such as Swords Dance Blue Slash, Dragon Dance Dragapult, Excadrill for Rocks, Swords Dance Como, any kind of Zeraora, Scarf Dracovish, or even Band Dracovish on webs. Even find, oh crap, well, what happened? Did it like freeze for a second? I'm sorry about that if it froze for a second. But yeah, on top of that, you also see things like Bisharp, which in my eyes is a staple on these teams. And I rank just a bit above this because of that. Yeah, but close to, oh my god, this needs to stop happening. My computer like keeps fucking around. I'm so sorry if that like impacted the display. But yeah, all things considered, Cloyster is great. Togekiss, the next Pokemon, it's just good with nasty plot sets. Really threatening. See it on balance, even see it on bulky offense. Trick Scarf and Trick Specs are okay too. But in my eyes, nasty plot, air slash flamethrower, either a recovery move or substitute is just great. Of course, Rotom-Heat keeps it in check, Zeraora keeps it in check, Jirachi keeps it in check, Excadrill soft checks it, etc. But it's still really good, and you can kind of force those things in, take advantage of that, flamethrower them, etc. So it's cool. Next year is kind of like the fringe picks. I've got Obstagoon, Incineroar, Snorlax, Gastron, Tyranitar, Uniqlos. Obstagoon is an underrated and potent breaker. Not too much counterplay to the Switcheroo plus bulk upset, but it's still limited to get in, and you got to keep the Flame Orb, and it's kind of awkward to use. I think it's still really great. It can get in because it's got Ghost Immunity and Teleport abuse. Yeah, but it's still kind of limited in that right. So tier 7 is the perfect place for it. I think it's kind of like squarely in the middle of B plus right now. maybe even at the higher end of B plus. I think you could have argued for it to be A minus like about 2 to 3 weeks ago, but now I'm a bit lower on it honestly. Again, most is just feeling. You could see it in Tier 6, you could see it in Tier 8, I wouldn't blink an eye. Incineroar is the next Pokemon. I think it's actually low A minus the more I think of it, more and more I think about it. A lot of the people are lowering it, I know, but it's a really great pivot on bulky offense. It's honestly hard to build bulky offense without a pivot like Incineroar right now. Just because it's great against Dragapult, Aegislash, even soft checks Rotom-Heat. And you can get out with Party Shot, which is really cool. Skyfire Dragon is nice against. And just a lot of natural bulk with heavy duty boots. Decent dual stab combination, ability to couple things with knockoff Will-O-Wisp, Parting Shot. Yeah, kind of full package. Next off, Snorlax, Pokemon that has seen amazing usage in official Smogon tournament and late SPL, but otherwise kind of fell flat. It's a really good win condition with Curse, but it's kind of cheesy. I used it in my loud run, and honestly, it was just kind of outmatched by more offensive teams. It was good defensively for things like Kyurem, Rotom-Heat, even taking a +2 Dragon hit, but it's taken advantage of by things like Congeler, Physical Aegislash, Como, even Terrakion, Bisharp. So yeah, it's just okay, not great. Curse sets that are. That is. Gastron's next. It's good in the Drakefish metagame. Also can soft check Zeraora and Rotom Heat. It doesn't even take a million from Groundsnot, which is cool. But it's still limited. It gives up passage a ton. It's super susceptible to status, especially toxic. And it's kind of cleft food, Peck's food. So yeah, it's good against bulky offense, kind of bad against balance, if you will. Next up, we've got Tyranitar. Choice Bantar is great right now. I wouldn't use any other step, but Choice Bantar is hard to counter if you don't have Hippowdon or Como. Keep that in mind. And even then, the Shred Run Ice Punch, which should do a number to both of those. Lacking Pursuit makes it a lot lower. It would be like A plus probably with Pursuit, but it's still great. And the Ghost Infested metagame, I definitely keep an eye on it. Next up, Reuniclus, kind of a fringe win condition right now. We're also seeing Assault Vest Regenerator sets, which I don't think are very good, but they do fit onto some builds, I guess. But yeah, come mindsets. You got to pick the right coverage and item and whatnot. Pick your spots, but it is pretty solid, all things considered. I definitely like Reuniclus. It's good because Magic Guard's broken, of course, but yeah, it's limited besides that. Getting into Tier 8, the last tier that we have Chandelure, Mamoswine, Cinderace, Necrozma, Salazzle, Rhyperior, Holucha, Ditto, and Zatu, not in that order. I said out of order for some reason, my bad. Chandelure is great with trick specs, but kind of limited, one trick pony, and also some matchups it's just not getting in a ton, or it faces things like Snorlax or the right kind of defensive core, and it's not doing great. But it still was ridiculously good later in SPL meta, pushing the envelope, being a huge threat, and it still kind of can fulfill that role. Same with Mamoswine. Mamoswine actually saw a lot of usage in the early days, not as much anymore. It kind of fell off, but still a threat. Choice Band is very hard to switch into. You're one flinch in your Corviknight away from losing it at any point in time, honestly. But you can kind of pivot around it, especially if you've got like Regenerator and Protect up the ass. So yeah, Mamoswine, good, but not great. I put it like squarely in the middle of B right now. Cinderace, Pokemon that I'm really low on personally. It's just a toxic Hippowdon matchup. It just kind of sucks. And they're super common right now. Same with Como. But Pyro Ball, if you don't face any of those things, is good. And Court Change is like OP. So it does have a niche. Once it gets Libero, it's going to be top tier, no doubt about that. But for now, I think it's kind of like B, maybe B minus even in my eyes. The Necrozma, quite on the contrary, I think really cool, underdeveloped, underutilized Pokemon. But even despite that, it's still Necrozma. It's kind of conventionally UU option. It definitely has a lot of niche. Definitely a lot of versatility. He's really good on hyper offensive teams. Even can use them balanced if used the right way. We saw 100% Heat use that, for example. But it's just still kind of limited. I think it's cool. I want to see more people use it, but I'm not ready to rank it much higher yet. As for Slazzle, we saw a phase of it being used later on in SBL, later on in OST, which is really cool. But still, it's really frail, relying on heavy-duty boots and corrosion to just do much at all. It's not breaking things even at +2, and it's frail, so there's not a ton it could do. But in certain matchups, it's great. Certain teams and certain synergies it could really make the most of. And I think it's something that's really abused well during the later stages of OST. Use some pretty cool teams. So that's great. But again, not top tier, far, far, far from it. I think it's like B, B minus again. Hyperior, just like kind of a second tier stealth rocker. Definitely good at checking Rotom-Heat, and it's probably going to get better and better once Seismitoad gets worse and worse post-Dragonfish ban. But until then, I rank it here. Probably put it B rank. Zatu is nice because it beats most rockers not named Hyperior. For example, does well against Hippowdon, sort of okay against Seismitoad and Clefable, not great, admittedly. Drill destroys it, but it beats Ferrothorn. That's great. Oh yeah, and it has Teleport, which is really huge. So viable for sure, but not like super great. Same with Ditto. Ditto seems so it was really good during the Dynamax metagame, but just kept falling off then. But it's really good against Hyper Offense and really good on like these sort of balances that ABR tends to pilot. Just to kind of be anti-setup, such anti-offensive option, or take advantage of them in their own domain. Yeah, and then Holucha is just another kind of second tier hyper offensive option that I think is still pretty good, but not great. It runs the Sky Attack set right now. So yeah, definitely some niche there, but not superb. Just okay. And honorable mentions to Keldeo, sorry, not Haluch. Haluch we just did. Honorable mentions to Keldeo, Crawdon, Diggersby. No, not Diggersby. Why did I say Diggersby? Diggersby should be here, honestly. But Toxtricity, and then the Sun Duo of Torkoal and Venus. Honestly, you could throw Diggersby here as well if you'd like. Surprised it didn't bring it up. Diggersby is another hyper offense option. That also fits in like bulky offense teams. This is not a breaker, but yeah, Keldeo, sub combines and specs and rain in particular are pretty okay, but not great. I view it as an inferior Primarina for the most part right now. That is more speed and the ability to check Bisharp, the ability to revenge kill some things. So cool, but not great. Groudon, I think it's actually gonna be really good once Drakefish gets banned. Right now, it's looming in the shadows, but Swords Dance Groudon is great, and even Choice Band is impossible to keep in check, barring Komo, and I guess sort of sort of Hydreigon, but if it switches in, it's going to get too killed or close combat can nuke it from choice band. So yeah, Toxtricity, nice and hyper offense, but also just kind of an underrated breaker in general. I feel like more people want to toy with it on balance teams. I know it's really frail, but it's just so much damage, and it takes advantage of Clef too. So like definitely niched here. And then last two Sun teams, yeah, Torkoal Set Sun, Stealth Rock, Yawn, Rapid Spin, Lava Plume, yeah, really physically tanky. And Venusaur with growth is just a madman, demolishing the whole tier besides like especially defensive Mandibuzz, which can foul play it with after growth for a lot of damage, and Komo, which can soft check it as well. So yeah, that's really good. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, something like 30 or 40 some Pokemon here ranked. Not going to count them all, but yeah, Clefable is the OG GOAT in SSAU, and it's not changing anytime soon. But yeah, these are my tier lists. If you like this content, if you like what I put in my channel, then A, subscribe, and B, if you like videos like this in particular, check out what I also did for SMOU or SOU in Black Widow U. Over the last week, I put up similar videos to this of that nature. The Black Widow on U has like over 1,000 views, which is really cool. If we could get that up there, that'd mean a lot to me. And if you have videos similar to like this you'd want to use, let me know in the comments. If you like this stuff, let me know in the comments. Always comment, like, subscribe. Blah. I can't talk anymore. I'm driving myself crazy. I'm probably driving you guys crazy. If you're at this point, thanks so much. Have a nice night. It's Finch. Peace.